Imagine waking up tomorrow and nothing controls you anymore, not your anger, not your impulses, not your spending, not even the thoughts in your head. Imagine being so in control of yourself that no situation, no person, no bad day can shake you. Sounds unrealistic, right? That's exactly what I used to think too, until I came across a man who had less freedom than you do right now, yet somehow became one of the freest minds in human history. His name was Epictetus. And here's the part most people ignore: he was born a slave. No control over his body. No control over his environment. No control over his circumstances. Yet this same man said something that still challenges people today. No one can harm you without your permission. Now pause for a second and really think about that. Because if that statement is true, then it means something uncomfortable. It means most of what's hurting you right now is not the situation itself, but your reaction to it. And I'm not saying that to dismiss your pain. I'm saying it because once you understand this, everything changes. Look around. Most people today aren't physically enslaved, but mentally, emotionally, financially, they're trapped. Trapped by what they say in the heat of the moment. Trapped by moods they can't control. Trapped by spending habits that keep them stuck. And trapped by thoughts that never seem to stop. Maybe you've experienced this yourself. Saying something you wish you could take back. Letting one bad mood ruin your entire day. Buying something you didn't need, then regretting it later. Or lying awake at night, overthinking things you can't control. If that sounds familiar, then stay with me. Because what I'm about to show you is not theory. This is something I've tested, practiced, and seen change people's lives in real time. Including mine. And if you actually apply it, not just listen, your life will not look the same in the next few months. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want. Real freedom is about controlling yourself, consistently. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men to ever live, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Not power over people. Not power over situations. Power over yourself. That's where everything begins." And today, I'm going to walk you through 4 areas of your life that quietly control everything: your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. Master these 4, and you don't just improve your life, you transform it. But listen carefully, this only works if you stay with me till the end. Each part builds on the last. If you skip, you break the chain. So do this right now. Drop a comment and tell me which one you struggle with the most: your mouth, your mood, your money, or your mind. I read those. And if you're serious about becoming someone who actually has control over their life, not just talks about it, hit subscribe right now. Because this channel, Stoic Quiet Strength, is for people who want real discipline, real clarity, and real power. Now let's start with the first one. Master your mouth. Most people underestimate how dangerous their own words are. Not just to others, but to themselves. Seneca once observed how a single sentence could destroy a reputation or build a legacy. But here's what most people miss: every word you speak is shaping who you are becoming. Think about that. Every time you speak without thinking, every time you react instead of respond, you're reinforcing a version of yourself. The version that lacks control. The version that lets emotions speak for you. And the worst part? You feel it immediately after. That moment of regret, where you wish you could take the words back. But you can't. Because once words leave your mouth, they don't come back. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine being the person who speaks with intention. Who doesn't rush to respond? Who doesn't let anger control their tone? That kind of person stands out instantly. People listen more. They trust more. They respect more. Not because you're louder, but because you're controlled. The Stoics practiced something simple, but powerful. Before speaking, they paused. Not for long, sometimes just a few seconds. But in that pause, they asked themselves 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it didn't pass, they stayed silent. And silence is something most people are uncomfortable with. Because they feel the need to react. To prove a point. To defend themselves immediately. But control looks like restraint. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said something out of anger, and it made the situation better? Exactly. Now imagine if in that moment, you had just paused. That one small decision changes everything. Here's something I want you to try. For the next few days, before you respond in any emotional situation, take 3 slow breaths. On the first breath, notice what you're feeling. On the second, think about what the other person might be feeling. On the third, choose your words carefully. Not reactively. That one habit alone can completely change your relationships. But it goes deeper than that. The way you speak to yourself matters just as much. Every time you say, I can't. I'm not good enough. This never works for me, you're programming your mind. You're reinforcing limitation. But when you start choosing your words, even internally, something shifts. You begin to build trust with yourself. You become someone who means what they say. And that is power. Because once you trust yourself, everything else becomes easier. Your words are not just communication. They are construction. You are building yourself, sentence by sentence. So here's what I want you to do. Type this in the comments, and don't just type it, mean it. I speak with intention, not impulse. Let that be your standard from now on. Because once you control your mouth, you're not just changing conversations, you're changing your identity. And that leads us to the second part, something even more powerful, which is your mood. Imagine if every morning, someone else decided how you were going to feel for the rest of the day. Some days they wake you up with anxiety. Other days with frustration. Sometimes with sadness for no clear reason. And once they choose it, you're stuck with it. That sounds ridiculous, but if you really think about it, that's exactly how most people live. They wake up and let circumstances decide their emotional state. Traffic controls their mood. People control their mood. Messages, delays, bad news, everything gets a vote except them. But here's where everything changes. You have more control over your emotions than you've been told. Not over what you feel at first, but over what you do next. And that difference is everything. Epictetus taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. In other words, what happens is not the problem, it's the meaning you attach to it. Think about the last time something small ruined your mood. Maybe someone didn't reply your message. Maybe someone spoke to you in a way you didn't like. The situation itself was neutral. But your mind created a story. They're ignoring me. They don't respect me. Something is wrong. And just like that, your mood changed. Not because of reality, but because of interpretation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. That doesn't mean nothing bad happens. It means you decide how deeply it affects you. Now I want you to understand something very clearly. Emotions are real, but they are not commands. Just because you feel something, doesn't mean you have to act on it. Anger is not a command to explode. Sadness is not a command to withdraw. Fear is not a command to stop. They are signals, not instructions. And the moment you understand that, you gain space. A small space, between what happens, and how you respond. And inside that space, is your power. Most people never notice that space. They react instantly. But the people who change their lives, learn to pause inside it. So here's something practical you can use immediately. The next time you feel a strong emotion rising, don't fight it, and don't follow it blindly. Instead, name it. Quietly say to yourself, "This is anger. This is frustration. This is anxiety." What that does, is separate you from the emotion. You stop being the emotion, and start observing it. And once you observe it, you can choose what to do with it. Another powerful shift, is questioning your interpretation. Ask yourself, is this the only way to see this? Because most of the time, it's not. Someone didn't reply. Maybe they're busy. Someone was rude. Maybe they're dealing with something you don't see. A delay happened. Maybe it's protecting you from something worse. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you stop assuming the worst version of it. Because your mind, by default, leans negative. It's trying to protect you. But in doing that, it often creates unnecessary suffering. And when you learn to challenge that, your emotional world becomes lighter. More stable. More controlled. The Stoics practiced something called evening reflection. At the end of the day, they would review their emotions. Not to judge themselves, but to understand. What triggered me today? How did I respond? What could I do better next time? That simple habit builds awareness. And awareness is the first step to control. Because you can't change what you don't notice. Let me tell you what happens when you start mastering your mood. You stop being easily triggered. You stop giving people the power to ruin your day. You become calm, even when things go wrong. And people notice that. They start to trust you more. Respect you more. Because in a world full of reactive people, the calm one stands out. But this is important, mood mastery is not about pretending everything is okay. It's not about fake positivity. It's about choosing responses that make you stronger, not weaker. When you feel anger, use it as information. Something matters to you. When you feel fear, use it as awareness. Pay attention. When you feel sadness, use it to connect deeper, not shut down. Every emotion has a purpose. But only if you control it, instead of letting it control you. So here's what I want you to do right now. Drop this in the comments, and say it like you mean it. I control my emotions, they don't control me. Because the moment you stop being a victim of your mood, you start becoming the architect of your life. And once you gain control over your emotions, the next thing you must take control of, is something that silently controls most people's decisions. Something that quietly controls the direction of their entire life, your money. Money is not just numbers. It's not just currency. It's your time, your energy, your choices, stored in physical form. And how you use it determines one thing, whether you live with freedom, or quiet dependence. Seneca said something that hits hard if you really understand it. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. Let that sink in. Because most people think their problem is not having enough money. But the real problem, is not having control over the money they do have. Look at your own life for a second. How many times have you bought something, not because you needed it, but because of how you felt in that moment? Maybe you were bored. Maybe you were stressed. Maybe you wanted to impress someone. In that moment, it feels small. It feels harmless. But those small decisions, repeated over time, build patterns. And those patterns either move you toward freedom or keep you stuck. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. If you can't control your spending, you can't control your future. Because every single time you spend money, you're making a decision about the kind of life you're building. There is no neutral purchase. It's either helping you or holding you back. But let's be clear, money mastery is not about being cheap. It's not about depriving yourself or never enjoying life. It's about being intentional. It's about making sure your money works for you, instead of you working for your impulses. Seneca, despite being wealthy, practiced something most people would never consider. He would occasionally live with less on purpose. Eat simple food. Sleep without luxury. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to prove something to himself. That his peace did not depend on comfort. That he was in control, not his desires. Now think about that in your own life. If your happiness depends on constant spending, then your freedom is limited. Because you always need more to feel okay. But when you learn to be content with less, something powerful happens. You stop chasing and start choosing. Here's a simple practice that can change your relationship with money immediately. The next time you're about to buy something you don't absolutely need, pause. And ask yourself one question. What am I really trying to buy right now? Not the item, the feeling. Is it comfort? Is it status? Is it distraction? Because most of the time, you're not buying the thing. You're buying an emotion. And once you see that clearly, you realize something. There are often better ways to get that feeling, without spending anything. That one awareness alone can save you from countless unnecessary decisions. But let's go deeper. Start paying attention to how you feel after you spend money. Not before, after. Because before, there's excitement. There's anticipation. But after, that's where the truth is. Some purchases leave you satisfied. Others leave you empty. Regretful. Even stressed. If you start noticing that pattern, you begin to understand yourself better. And when you understand yourself, you make better decisions. Money also reveals your priorities. What you spend on consistently shows what you value, whether you admit it or not. So if you want to change your life, don't just try to earn more. Learn to use what you already have with discipline. Because discipline with a little becomes power with more. And lack of discipline with a little becomes chaos with more. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive wealth or prosperity without arrogance, and be ready to let it go." That is control. That is balance. To have. But not be controlled by what you have. Because at the end of the day, money is a tool. Nothing more. But in the hands of someone without control, it becomes a trap. And in the hands of someone disciplined, it becomes freedom. So here's what I want you to do. Comment this below, and let it sink in. My money serves me. I don't serve my money. Because the moment you shift that mindset, you stop being controlled by what you want in the moment. And start building what you actually need for your future. And once you begin to take control of your money, you'll realize something deeper. The real battle was never outside. It was always inside. Which brings us to the most powerful part of all, the one thing that influences everything else, which is your mind. Because if you don't control your mind, it will control your mouth, your mood, and your money without you even realizing it. Your mind is like a place that never sleeps. Thoughts are constantly entering, leaving, competing for your attention. Some of them are useful. Most of them are not. And yet, most people treat every thought like it deserves to stay. Imagine allowing strangers to walk into your house at any time, rearrange your furniture, and decide how your day goes. You wouldn't allow that. But that's exactly what happens when you don't filter your thoughts. A single negative thought enters, and suddenly your energy drops. Your mood shifts. Your focus disappears. Not because the thought is true, but because you accepted it without question. Epictetus taught that we should not believe every impression we receive. In simple terms, just because you think something, doesn't mean it's real. That alone is life-changing when you understand it deeply. Because most people suffer more from what they imagine than from what actually happens. Think about how often your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario. Something small happens, and suddenly your thoughts are racing. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if this never works out? And before anything even happens, you've already created stress, anxiety, and fear. Not from reality, but from imagination. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Not your circumstances. Not your past. Your thoughts." That's how powerful this is. So here's the shift. Instead of letting your mind run freely, you start directing it. Not by force, but by awareness. The next time a negative thought appears, don't fight it aggressively. Just pause, and ask yourself, is this helping me, or hurting me? If it's not helping you, why give it your energy? You don't have to follow every thought. You can let it pass. Like a cloud. But most people hold on to it. They replay it. They build on it. And before they know it, it becomes their reality. Here's another powerful distinction that will change how you think. Learn to separate facts from stories. The fact might be, something didn't go as planned. The story is, this always happens to me, nothing ever works out. The fact is neutral. The story is what creates suffering. And once you see that clearly, you realize you've been adding unnecessary weight to your own life. But here's where real control comes in. You don't just remove negative thoughts, you replace them with better ones. Not fake positivity, but useful thinking. Instead of, this is a disaster, you shift to, this is a challenge, what can I do next? Same situation. Different mindset. Completely different outcome. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And if you really look at your life, you'll see how true that is. Most of the things you worried about never actually happened the way you imagined. But you still felt the stress, as if they did. That's the power of an uncontrolled mind. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine being able to notice your thoughts, choose which ones to keep, and let the rest go. That's not something reserved for a few people. It's a skill. And like any skill, it improves with practice. Here's something simple you can start today. Every time you catch yourself overthinking, stop, and redirect your mind to a question that actually helps you. Ask, what's the best step I can take right now? That one question shifts your mind from worry to action. And action breaks mental loops. Another practice the Stoics used was constant awareness, being present enough to observe their own thinking. Not getting lost in it, but watching it. Because once you can observe your thoughts, you stop being controlled by them. You become the one in charge. And that's where clarity comes from. That's where focus comes from. That's where real confidence comes from. Because confidence is not loud. It's not forced. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you can handle your own mind. So type this below, and let it become your identity. I am the architect of my mind. Because once you truly believe that, you stop waiting for life to change. And start changing how you experience life. And when you begin to control your mind, something powerful happens. These 4 areas, your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind, they start working together. They stop fighting you, and start supporting you. And that's where everything begins to change, not just in parts, but in your entire life. And this is where it all comes together, because once you begin to gain control in these 4 areas, something subtle but powerful starts to happen. It doesn't feel dramatic at first. There's no sudden overnight transformation. But slowly, your entire life begins to shift. The way you speak changes, so your relationships change. The way you handle your emotions changes, so your reactions change. The way you use your money changes, so your decisions change. The way you think changes, so your entire perspective changes. And when all of that starts aligning, you don't just feel different, you become different. It's like tuning an instrument. When one string is off, everything sounds wrong. But when each string is tuned properly, the entire instrument comes to life. That's what happens when you start mastering your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. They don't work in isolation. They amplify each other. Let me show you what I mean. When you control your mouth, you avoid unnecessary conflict, which helps you stay calm, which strengthens your mood. When your mood is stable, you make better decisions, including financial ones. When you manage your money wisely, you reduce stress, which clears your mind. And when your mind is clear, you think better, speak better, and act better. It becomes a cycle. But this time, it's working for you, not against you. This is what most people never experience. Because they never build control in one area long enough to see it affect the others. They try everything at once, get overwhelmed, and quit. But that's not how this works. You don't need to be perfect in all 4 areas. You just need to start. Pick one. Focus on it. Stay consistent. And let the rest follow. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that small daily actions, repeated consistently, create lasting change. Marcus Aurelius didn't become disciplined overnight. He reminded himself daily. He practiced daily. Even as an emperor, he still struggled. But he kept going. And that's what matters. Progress, not perfection. Let me tell you something real. There was a point where I thought I had no control over my reactions. I would say things too quickly, feel things too deeply, spend without thinking, and overthink everything. It felt normal, until I realized it wasn't working. So I started small. I didn't try to fix everything. I just focused on one thing, pausing before I spoke. That was it. And at first, it was uncomfortable. But over time, it changed how I handled situations. That small change started affecting everything else. My emotions became easier to manage. My decisions became clearer. My thoughts became less chaotic. That's how this works. One area influences the rest. And once you experience that, you realize something important. You are not stuck the way you are. You are simply untrained in controlling yourself. And that can change. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Not what we say, not what we intend, what we do consistently." So if you repeatedly speak without thinking, react without control, spend without intention, and think without awareness, that becomes your identity. But the moment you start practicing control, even in small ways, your identity begins to shift. You start seeing yourself differently. And once your identity changes, your actions follow naturally. This is what creates that upward movement in life. One small win leads to another. One controlled decision builds confidence for the next one. And before you know it, you're no longer reacting to life, you're directing it. But here's something even deeper. When you start mastering yourself, it doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you. When you speak with intention, you reduce unnecessary conflict. When you control your emotions, you bring calm into chaotic situations. When you handle money wisely, you model discipline for others. When you think clearly, you become someone people look to for solutions. Your growth becomes contagious. And that's the ripple effect most people don't think about. Your self-control is not just personal. It's influential. It changes environments. It changes relationships. It changes outcomes. And perhaps the most powerful shift of all is how you begin to see challenges. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "How can I use this?" Every difficult conversation becomes practice for controlling your mouth. Every emotional moment becomes practice for controlling your mood. Every financial decision becomes practice for controlling your money. Every negative thought becomes practice for controlling your mind. Life doesn't become easier, but you become stronger. And that changes everything. So if you've made it this far, I want you to pause for a second. Because most people don't. Most people listen, feel motivated for a moment, and then go back to the same habits. Don't let that be you. Drop this in the comments right now, and make it a decision, not just words. Every challenge is my chance to grow stronger. Because from this point forward, that's how you need to see your life. Not as something happening to you, but as something shaping you. And now, let's bring this all together. We started with a man who had no external freedom, yet became internally unbreakable. Epictetus didn't change his circumstances first. He changed himself within them. And that's the same opportunity you have right now. You don't need a perfect life to gain control. You need a decision. A decision to take responsibility for your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind. Because these four things, whether you realize it or not, are shaping your life every single day. They are either working for you, or against you. There is no middle ground. But here's what I want you to remember more than anything. This is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming intentional. Every time you pause before speaking, you're building control. Every time you choose your emotional response, you're building strength. Every time you spend with purpose, you're building discipline. Every time you redirect your thoughts, you're building clarity. These small actions, repeated daily, create a version of you that most people never reach. Not because they can't, but because they never commit to it. 6 months from now, you're either going to be the same person, dealing with the same patterns, or you're going to be someone who has learned how to handle life with control, clarity, and confidence. That choice is yours. And it starts with what you do after this video. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Remember what Epictetus said. No one can harm you without your permission. Today, you take that permission back. Today, you stop reacting blindly. Today, you start choosing deliberately. This is the shift, from chaos to control, from impulse to intention, from weakness to quiet strength. And if this message resonated with you, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit the like button so more people can find it. Share this with someone who needs it. And most importantly, subscribe to Stoic Quiet Strength, because this is just the beginning. We're building something here: discipline, clarity, and real self-mastery. And before you go, drop this final statement in the comments, and mean every word of it. Today I choose mastery over mediocrity, intention over reaction, and control over my life. Now go to the description, you'll find a full playlist designed to help you build this step by step. Start there, and keep going. Your future self is already watching. The only question is, will you become that person?